Today, we're talking about an awesome soft light that you should consider adding for your videos. So the light that we're talking about is the 68TD from Falcon Eyes. This light is basically a giant disc that is always going to give you soft light. Now the reason that I really like this light is that it's super easy to use and it's small enough that you can pretty much use it in any situation, and it's always going to give you awesome soft light. Right now I'm using the baby brother of this Falcon Eyes 68TD, which is the 28TD. This one is a smaller disc. I've done a video of this one in the past, and this one is also awesome for getting you soft looking light. It's great for this kind of setting. Now the difference is the 68TD is just massive compared to the 28TD. It's a giant disc. So it works well for shooting any sort of interviews or any sort of footage where it's just someone talking on camera or some people on camera. It's perfect for making people look good. And that's why I like this light so much. So this light is an LED panel that has a soft face on it. You don't really have to add anything to this light. There's no sort of modification that goes in front of the light. Now, typically when you're working with lights, when you want to get soft quality of light, you need to modify the light in some way. So for example, with my Aperture 120D, you have to build a softbox on the front of the light to be able to get nice soft light. So the 68TD basically eliminates the need for you to build out anything on your light to get that soft quality of light. And the best part about this is that it's super slim, so that if you're backed into a corner or you need to put this light against a wall, you'll have no issues because it has such a small profile that you don't need a ton of space between you and it to be able to get nice looking light. Now, a couple things about the 68TD. You could go from 0 to 100%, so it has dimming capabilities, and then you could also go from tungsten to daylight. So if you want to shoot tungsten, you can go all the way down to 3000 Kelvin up to 56 Kelvin. In terms of light quality, I haven't noticed any sort of green spike or magenta spike that you typically get out of LEDs, especially around this price range. So in terms of the quality of light and the color, it looks really good, and it's priced well for what you're getting. So this light is about $550, a little bit under $550. And when you look at the other lights in that range of price, you don't necessarily get as much flexibility. So with this light, you basically get a light, a modifier, and the ability to do bicolor. The Aperture 120D is in the same price range, but you only get one color, you don't have a bicolor capabilities, and you have to build modifiers on front of it, which adds additional cost. So when it comes to lighting people, you typically want nice, soft light. Unless you're doing something specific where you want hard light, but for most situations, you're gonna wanna use a soft light and you're gonna wanna put it at like a 45-degree angle, something like this, where you light the face looks good, and to do that, you need a bright, soft light. Now, ideally, you want the bigger soft light. The biggest soft light that you can make will give you prettier light for your footage. Okay, so the main type of lights that I like using are big lights. So this right here, this is my 8x, I have my silk, and then behind, you can see we're on set here right now, but this is my M18, that is an HMI. HMIs are daylight balanced lights, and what I do is I'll put my HMI through an 8x or a 12x. And so that's gonna give you the best soft light. And so ideally when you're shooting with other lights, you want to try and emulate this style. So you want big soft lights because that gets you the prettiest looking footage. So I'm gonna show you guys a few samples. I got a camera set up. We're at the end of our day here. I had a little extra time, so it's a good chance to show you the difference between, you know, a big soft light like this. I've got my Aperture 120D, and then I also have my Falcon Eyes 68TD, and I'm gonna show you the difference between these three lights. So now I'm using my Aperture 120D. As you can tell, it's not as bright as an HMI. There's a reason why I use HMIs. You can fill a lot of space with a lot of light. But for interview purposes, this is the other kind of setup that I'm gonna do, would be the 120D, and then I'm gonna show you the Falcon Eyes next. So when you're using this light, you can see it's just a much smaller unit than all these other lights that I'm showing you here. You know, obviously this is the biggest setup back here, but even with the Aperture, the 120D, the 300D, you might get a little more output, but this is so much smaller. And the beauty of it is that you can run off these Sony batteries, which they're small, they're light, and you can get a lot of power out of, you know, just a couple of these on this disc. So it's a much smaller setup overall. So if you had the budget and you had the crew to build it, you know, a giant setup like an 8x or 12x with an HMI pumping through it would be the most ideal situation to get really nice soft quality of light. And this is what I like to do on my bigger shoots. However, when you're just shooting like an interview or talking head or any sort of thing where it's just this, it's just someone on camera talking to camera or talking off camera as an interview, you don't necessarily need that big of a setup. So the 68TD acts as a big source because it's a big circular consistent light that outputs the same in every direction. It's not like super directional in the center or anything like that. It's just a soft glowing light. And so I did a short test in the studio today, and I could just show you the difference between like an 8x with an HMI versus the 120D versus the 68TD. And when you look at this footage, you could really see that the 68TD acts more like the HMI than it does the 120D. The 120D, even with the softbox built around it, still has more of a directional output. It's still stronger source. It might give you more kick in terms of output, but the light quality is more directional, so you're gonna get darker shadows. So when you're lighting people, I would rather have a soft source, something that's easy to use, rather than having that little bit of more output, but having to do more work to modify the light to be able to get that softer look. The beauty of the 68TD is that it's quick and easy to use. You pop it up, you stick it on a stand, and you're ready to go. You could either plug it in into like a wall socket, or you could use a battery to power it. You could use the Sony NPF batteries, which are very cheap and inexpensive. You could also use V-mount batteries, but V-mount batteries do tend to cost more and they're heavier. The Sony batteries, you could have a few sets of them and they're actually not that expensive. I'll put a link down in the description to one that Falcon Eyes specifically suggests using for these lights because they work the best with these lights and they're super inexpensive, which is one of the best parts about it. So you're not having to buy a bunch of extra pieces and extra batteries to be able to make this light work. That's one of the really cool things about it. So let me go through a few of the pros and the cons about getting this light for you to make a decision if this is the right light for you. On the pro side, it's quick and easy to use. It's super slim. It uses smaller batteries that are lighter, and you get a consistent soft output that has good color. Now, you wouldn't get this light if you're looking for a light that you want to modify. So if you wanted to put barn doors on the light, if you wanted to have more of a directional light where you get more output, then this might not necessarily be the light for you because this is just a soft source and it's really meant to be used when you need a soft output light. So if you need more control of your light, you need to be able to do more things with it, then you might consider other styles of lights where you build a modifier in front. But honestly, the 68TD is something that I take with me every time I'm doing like a talking head, an interview, or any sort of situation like this because I always know I'm gonna get a consistent light that looks good for people. So guys, I'll put a link down below in the description where you can check out more about this light. Like I said, I'll also put a link to the batteries. So if you're someone who does a lot of talking head style of footage, or if you wanted to find a light for your YouTube studio, something like this, then the 68TD or one of the other lights in this series would be one that I suggest you get because they're perfect lights for getting that soft look when you're filming people. All right guys, that's it. If you're new here to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's a lot of awesome filmmaking tutorials and camera reviews. I also have the creatorfilmschool.com, which is my nuts to bolts, everything you need to know to have a career as a filmmaker or a creator. All right guys, that's it. I'll see you on the next one.